Unacceptable fringe.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Welcome to Sunday night here on the Weekly Wrap as we are freezing our nuts off here on the channel. Boy, is it cold. Guys, I can't tell you, I've been spending the weekend under a blanket and whenever I can, at least. It's been crazy. In fact, I've heard stories about my neighbors having their window seals breaking from humidity in their house and people just ultimately on the way out the door in terms of freezing. It's just been insane. Of course, if you're not from Alberta, if you haven't heard, there was a rolling blackout electricity and natural gas emergency here in the province last night. Now, keep your eyes glued to the channel. I will have a video coming out talking about all of that craziness tomorrow here on the channel. But one thing I can say is that, boy, I was sure glad that provinces like Saskatchewan and Scott Moe came to the rescue with their good old coal plants that weren't under the guise of Rachel Notley in order to shut down early. Because this just goes to show that wind and solar just aren't going to cut it. We're all freezing. It's crazy. Let's do our usual before we get into the whole politics talk. And boy, we're going to talk about a few crazy things that happened this week. Let's do a little roll call in the chat. Let's get everybody in. Let's see if we can get one person from every portion of the province of the country here in the chat. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Let me know if you're new to the stream. I always love hearing when people are new. Let's jump in. Blackface son of Castro, he's always here. He's always monitoring what I'm doing because we all know Justin hates me so much. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. I bet you are. Well, welcome into the stream, Blackface. Good to see you. Trudeau's Akami coming in as well. Debbie Moore coming in from Calgary. Nice to see you, Debbie. Welcome into the show. Rex is coming in from Commeyville, Central Ontario. Well, welcome in. Don't go too commie, but welcome into the stream. As long as you're awake, that's all that matters. We've got Gayton coming in, Alberta here, freezing my butt. Everybody is. It's crazy. Dickard with Dave too coming in. Hey, YYC also here. And why do we live here? Or why do we live where the air hurts my face? It's not usually this bad. You know what? I was talking to somebody last night, and I'm going to get into that where I was last night. But I was talking to somebody last night and saying, with Calgary, this is usually what we normally see is not this bad, but you'll get like a week of really, really cold in January. And then we start to get the Chinook winds coming over the mountains, warming things up. I know by about Tuesday, Wednesday this week, we're starting to see highs of like -2 to 0 degrees by next weekend. So of course, I think we're out of the woods after this weekend. Maybe it's because we're not paying as much carbon tax. I don't know. We'll see. Mike TV Dub jumping into the stream. Great to see you again. Welcome to the Unacceptable Fringe live cast. Mike TV, welcome back into the stream. Great to see you here. I actually seen Mike TV in a stream with one of my favorite channels, Ethan Van Sciver, the other night, talking about Comicsgate. Now, of course, I am still in the works of getting Missing Context up and rolling, folks. I apologize. There's been a lot of crazy things happening in my universe as I try to get all my graphics and intros done for that channel. We will be talking about things like that, but it's great to see Mike TV in here. Master of Snatch jumping in. Hope everybody has a great 2024. Snatch, it's going to be a crazy 2024. I hope you guys got your seatbelts. Buckle up. It's going to be crazy. Where do we have people jumping in from here? I know other people are sounding off, and again, I'm trying to get the roll call in, so please don't think I'm skipping your comments, everybody. We've got Angie coming in. Happy Sunday, Derek, coming in from north of Huntsville, Ontario, where we're currently being buried in massive dumps of snow. Sorry to hear. Stay warm. Welcome into the stream. Of course, we've got good old Tammy Eldridge coming in as well from Elliott Lake, Ontario. Great to see you in here. Kaylee McIntyre joining us from New Brunswick. Welcome into the stream. Farmers coming in from Manitoba. Good old home for me. Gotta love Manitoba. Lady Linda McLaughlin coming in from BC. Great to see you into the stream. Thanks for joining us here tonight. We've got Frank Handyman coming in from Elliott Lake, Ontario. Welcome into the stream. Snatch saying, show Unacceptable Fringe some and then nothing. Show me some what? Drugs? Show me some hostility? I'm sure it's one of the two because, boy, if you guys were here on the channel Friday, boy, the hostile bots were out in full force. And we're going to get into that a little bit we'll get into that at the beginning of the show because I want to get the controversy, all of the controversy out of the way. But we're going to get into that. Mike TV is coming in from Winnipeg. Good old home for me. It's great to see you in here again, Mike. Welcome in. Non-compliant Canadian coming in From Eastern Ontario, welcome into the stream. It's Dave Hiltz is coming in from Taylor, BC, about 60 kilometers into the woods. That's probably the best place to be, away from the cities, away from everything else. Welcome into the stream. Great to see you. Roger's coming in from Vancouver Island. Great to see you in here. Welcome back into the stream. Of course, Blackface is letting us know that he's hiding with the Trudeau Castro family bunker in Windsor, Nova Scotia. Now, when we talk about the controversy, I always like saying controversy. The controversy here in the channel, I'm sure everybody here saw my video that I released yesterday. We don't normally do video content on Saturdays, but I felt the need to put something out there. I felt the need to talk about the video that I've covered on David Menzies. And yes, we are going to get into that on this stream, but it's not going to take up a lot of the stream. I just wanted to go over a few things with the community, a few things with all of the viewers here so that people know where we stand or where I stand on this. If you didn't get the point in the video from Saturday, of course, if you missed everything altogether, I dropped a video about David Menzies and his arrest or detainment on whichever way you want to label it. I follow it as an arrest. Some people are labeling it as detained. I say tomato, tomato, because David Menzies is, in fact, suing the RCMP, Chrystia Freeland, and the Canadian government for that incident. And I sincerely hope that he wins. I hope that everything goes well for David Menzies. I've done work with Rebel News in the past. I quite like the guys over at Rebel, and I wish him all the best as things move forward. Now, that being said, I find it funny on this channel that if you guys remember back in, I believe it was September, or it could have been earlier in the year, but I believe it was September when I covered a video that Pierre Poilievre put out when he was talking about the carbon tax. And in the video, he had a slip up where he said, we're going to reduce the carbon tax. And I remember covering that video and saying, hey, Pierre, what's being said here? Now, there was two reasons I covered that video. For one, I want clarity. I think after 8 years of what we've experienced with Justin Trudeau, every Canadian, no matter who you're cheering for, no matter who your team is, what you have to remember, you should always, always be questioning government. You should always be holding their feet to the flame. Now more than ever, what we should be doing as a society is letting these politicians know that are running for ultimate power in the country that if you screw up, similar to how Justin Trudeau has done, we're coming for you. And we're not going to let this go anymore. We're not going to stand back and allow somebody else to destroy this country, take away our freedoms, take away our mobility rights, take away our ability to feed our families. We should be mad as hell. It kind of reminds me of the abusive girlfriend situation where a guy constantly hits his girlfriend or vice versa. The girlfriend hits the man and they keep going back and saying, it's okay, I'll let it go. We've been abused too much. And I think the time's got to come where we got to stand up and start saying, I don't care who you are. If you abuse me, it's over. But when I questioned Pierre, people lost their minds. Now, I'm not saying people in this live stream. I'm talking about people in general, the viewers, whether they're bots, whether it's lefties coming in just to raise the stakes in the comment section. People lost their minds. How dare you question Pierre? How dare you rock the boat? Shh, keep quiet. We wouldn't want him to lose to Justin Trudeau. That's about the most laughable time I can remember on YouTube by looking at it going, are people really this upset? Because ultimately, if you're telling people don't question that side of the government because we like them, well, then we're no different than the ones on the left that are saying, don't question Justin Trudeau when he's in every scandal on the planet. Now, when I questioned what was going on with David Menzies, again, I'll clarify that when we talk about line of sight, again, I had spoken with people who had served in the military. I'd spoken with some police officers, and I wanted clarification on what would have caused these officers to move in. A lot of people said it's a setup. I agree that, well, I agree there were certain elements at factor there. When you look at Chrystia Freeland's assistant walking off to the side, when you look at her smiling as she's walking away, Menzies, of course, knew these officers were there when he started his questioning of Chrystia Freeland because he's not stupid. And of course, people had made it very clear in the comments as well. Menzies is targeted by these guys. They know who he is. They know what he's doing. When I brought up line of sight, we were talking about the 21-foot rule. Some people call it a 9-foot rule for engaging in the rights to open fire on somebody. And I had simply made a statement that what David Menzies was lucky and fortunate of is that these cops were merely power tripping, but they weren't power tripping in a sense where they used the 9-foot rule or the 21-foot rule, however you want to label it, as an excuse to ultimately remove somebody they don't like from the equation and say, well, we were within our rights because we don't know what he was going to do to Christian Freeland. Any security detail should be walking with their mark at all times. They should be within arm's reach at all times, which is why the Conservative Party of Canada is doing an inquiry. It is why David Menzies is within his rights to sue them. It is within every right that David Menzies has to push that his rights were violated. I believe they were violated. And again, I support David Menzies. I try very hard on this channel to make sure that all angles are covered, whether we like them or not. And that's what we're going to have to do, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be some nasty times. And if you think that this is going to be the smallest thing to come out of 2024, like I said at the beginning of the stream, find your seatbelts and buckle up. This is going to be a year where we have to call everything, where we have to talk about everything in detail. I would have I remember reading some comments that said I was gunning for a CBC job and that I had lost all of my integrity by reporting against what happened to David Menzies. People were simply hearing what they wanted to hear and not listening to what I was saying, if that makes sense. And I find that frustrating because not because of the scrutiny. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of the support that I got in the comments, all the community post support that I got. I'm very grateful for all of it. The reason that stuff gets to me is because I'm looking at where we are as a country and saying, if people can't hear what people are saying and take the time to listen, even when they disagree with somebody, then we as a country are lost because everything is going to be broken out of context. People aren't going to be getting the real story. And I think if you follow news, especially with government paid prostitutes and local legacy media, we're already lost with the people that are believing everything that comes out of the TV. Integrity is the most important thing, I think, when you're sharing news on YouTube, when you're talking to people, when you're having your facts. The best thing you can ever do in life is tell the truth. If you tell the truth and stand behind your convictions, there's nothing anybody can do to push you back and say you're wrong. Because you know in your heart, in your mind, in your soul of souls, you have told 100% accurate truth to what you understand. That doesn't mean you can't be wrong. But even if we disagree, we should have the ability to listen to what somebody is saying, to breathe, to take in the information, and then say, what am I going to make of that situation? I think that if we can't listen to one another, especially when other governments come in, we're lost. And this country is lost. I'm open to scrutiny anytime you guys want to give it to me. Call me out when you need to. Call me every name in the book. I don't care. It bounces off me at this point. I've got very good friends that have conditioned me very well. That maybe a year ago this kind of stuff would have bothered me. It falls off me like water on a duck's back now. I am not phased when people want to say nasty things to me on the internet. Tamara Leach once gave me the best advice: treat it like a billboard, post and walk away. But again, I have some great friends that have taught me how to deal with that scrutiny. If somebody has a valid point, I'm happy to listen to it anytime, anytime. But much like that video, and what I will state here again is that anytime I'm reporting on anything on this channel, integrity, integrity, integrity is my number one goal. To make sure that when you come to this channel, when you hear what I have to say, that I'm reporting things as accurate as I can. I'm looking at the angles and I'm looking at it from every point of view to distinguish from right and wrong so that when you come to my channel, you're getting the complete story and you're getting all of the facts, whether we like them or not. There's multiple political channels on YouTube that I call choir boys. They all sing the same story. They say, well, I'm just going to talk about the news and let you draw your own conclusions. We're in this together in this country. All 13,000 people who subscribe on my channel, people who come to watch my videos, we're in this as a community. We need to talk about our opinions. We need to talk about our points of view because discourse is the only way we're going to fix this broken country that we're in. If we all just bob our heads and listen to what people have to say and take one person's opinion as the rule of law, we're in deep trouble. And that's how we stay in the situation that we're currently in this country. So what I would implore each and every one of you, whether it's this channel, whether it's another channel, whether you're on the street talking to somebody, don't like everybody's opinion. Don't agree with everybody's opinion. You don't have to. But listen to what they're saying, whether you enjoy what they're saying or not, whether you agree with it or not. Listen to what they're saying. Try to understand where those people are coming from, what their motivation is. When you look at the backlash from the left on some of these issues, when it comes to gender ideology, when it comes to rights for people, I'm not agreeing with those parties, but I'm saying that you might be able to learn where maybe their perception is coming from if you listen to what they're saying, and then you can use logic to get your point of view across. Powerful weapon. Here we go. If it doesn't bother you, why do you keep ranting about it? Get on with it, man. Comments like that, see that you're just wasting your time too. Why do I rant about it? Because I have a community here that we all kind of share a collective vision. It's the same reason I'm talking about this, saying the problem is that we're not listening to people. People who say just get on with it, quit ranting, just tell us the facts. That doesn't get anybody anywhere. It doesn't get anybody anywhere. Um, yeah, freestyle. You can say whatever you want to say. I'm not even going to take what you have to say into account anymore because it's you're ranting. I'm allowed to rant. This is my channel. If you don't like my rants, there's lots of other channels. I think Northern Exposure's live right now, aren't they? And you can go listen to them if you don't want to listen to me. That's fine. And that's how I do things here. I'm not gonna look. This isn't a customizable channel. This isn't a channel where you can tell me what to say and think. This is people come here. There's currently by my clock 77 people in here that are here to listen to what I have to say, and I appreciate each and every one of you for coming here. Yeah, this is a rant. It's a rant because I'm frustrated at the way our country's headed. That nobody wants to question Almighty PP because it might rock the boat and ruin his chances of being prime minister. Ladies and gentlemen, Pierre Poilievre is going to be the next prime minister of Canada. If you look at polling, if you look at if you look at the latest statistics, I don't think there's anything that could happen right now that is going to sway people to vote for the other end of the spectrum. I've said multiple times, I think there's going to be fuckery at foot when it comes to the next Canadian election. I think that Justin Trudeau is going to pull UBI out of his pocket as a method of trying to get people to vote in a certain way, much like he did during lockdowns by using fear. But I undeniably think that Pierre Poilievre is going to be the next prime minister of Canada. So yeah, I'm going to call him out. I met with him last October when he invited me to Ottawa. When I stood in the House of Commons with him on the floor behind the media room, he brought me behind the media gallery, and we had a brief discussion. And in that discussion, he says, "I'm a big fan of your book." Now, I only had the one book out at the time, and I thanked him very much for enjoying it. And I simply said to him, "Look, I was happy to make fun of Justin Trudeau, but please don't think that I'll be any kinder on you if you screw up the country when you're in charge." I let him know very flat out, if you make a bad move, I'm going to call it out. And when I left that meeting, he said, keep doing what you're doing. Now, I've said a million times over, I said it last week as well. Do I trust Pierre Poilievre? I don't know him well enough to trust him. I think that out of every option we have in terms of repairing our situation in Canada, he's the best choice. But do I trust any government? No. Sorry. I don't care how good they are to me. I don't care what they've done. I don't trust politicians. You shouldn't trust politicians. We need something on Saturdays. Well, so here's the problem. I've seen people suggesting Saturdays a lot. Um, Most people know I'm a father of three. I've got a family. Um, my options for a live stream, unless I did it during the week, my options were going to be a Friday night or Sunday night. And lots of people like to watch other content creators on Friday nights, and I'm not going to try to compete out of respect. Um, and Saturdays, well, I only get 2 days a week to really spend with my wife. My typical schedule, my wife, for people who don't know, again, my wife um, wanted to keep her career. She works in oil and gas. She went to college. She did her time. She enjoys her job. And once we had our second child, once we had my son, my wife was ending the end of her maternity leave, and she says, "Look, we're both working, um, but she says I got to decide if I'm going back or staying home." And she said, "I'm not a homebody. I'm not a homebody. I love my kids." And believe me, my wife, I don't think anybody on this earth was meant to be a mother more than my wife. She loves kids. She's great with kids. I'm pretty sure my kids would be um, hidden in the backyard under a bag of lime if my wife wasn't around to calm some of the situations we've been through in the past. Now, I say that sarcastically. Of course, I wouldn't harm my children. But I offered at the time. I said to my wife that if you factored in the cost of daycare in Alberta at the time, I said I'd be going to work to essentially put two kids in daycare at the time where by the time I'm done paying for that daycare, I'd have $300 left over a month out of my pay. So I said, why don't we scrap that 300 a month and I'll stay home with the kids. You can continue your job, and I'll be a stay at home dad. And at that time, I was working on my novel that came out prior to writing How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. I said it gives me an opportunity. I was streaming on Twitch with retro game streams, so I said that can help me build my Twitch at nighttime, and I'll look after the kids. Now we had a third kid after that during the pandemic, and I stay home with my kids now. I've got two kids in school full time. I've got my 3-year-old at home with me during the days, during the week. My wife goes off to work. I get my kids to school. I spend my day with my 3-year-old. If there's news happening and I have a chance to make a video and drop it online, I do that. But then my wife comes home from work. I've got dinner on the table, and we get about an hour to 2 hours together before we have to start talking about kids needing baths, cleaning up, doing things like that. So I only get about 2 hours a day with my wife. So weekends is really the only time when we can do things as a family, go places, be together. So a Saturday night stream, essentially, my wife supports everything that I do. She stands behind everything that I do, but I can't twist her arm to say, "Hey, listen, Saturdays would be more productive for me." And don't get me wrong, I think they would be great to do Saturday streams, but unfortunately, I'd be ignoring my family, and unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, my family has to come first. That's um, that's just the way it is. So unless you guys want to see me move to Fridays, I could do Fridays. I got no problem with Fridays, but Sundays are pretty much my only open day of the weekend, aside from Fridays. And that's because Sunday nights I usually use those days to get content ready for the week. And again, kids are getting ready for school, things like that. So my wife's preoccupied, and that's time I don't really get with my family. So um, I know I don't have to explain anything. Up north saying, welcome into the stream, by the way. You don't have to explain anything to anyone. It's your business. Of course. No, I like to give clarity because, again, you guys spend your time here um, on these live streams. You watch my videos. You have a voice, and that's part of the reason I do these live streams is to hear what you guys have to say. But I also want to be transparent and let you guys know I hear you. I get what people are. I get what people are talking about, but it's unfortunately something I can't work with, and that's why. So it's not that I'm ignoring you guys. It's I gotta make some time for the good old family, and Saturdays are probably my favorite day of the week because that's a day that's uninterrupted with the kids. Now, Saturday this week was crazy. Good friend of the channel, friend of mine, Theo Fleury and Jamie Soleil, did their Fire and Ice show in Calgary. If you don't know what Fire and Ice what Fire and Ice is, God, I'm so dyslexic tonight. Fire and Ice it's kind of like a TED Talk that slash talk show that Theo Fleury and Jamie Soleil host in Calgary or around Alberta. They've done shows out of town as well for Canadians for Truth, and they usually have guests around, and they talk about great subjects in terms of the pandemic, people who have stood up for freedom, people who are standing up to make a difference in their communities. And last night, um, Theo and Jamie at Fire and Ice had former Toronto mayor run Chris Sky over at their theater here in Calgary. And of course, I went with my wife to hear what Chris Sky had to say and spend some time chatting with Chris Sky about the mayoral race in Calgary. I talked to him about maybe getting some pointers as the planning phases are starting to get underway in Calgary. And the planning phase is going to be something that um, is going to be very critical this year because I was talking to Theo last night about it. When I first announced that I was going to run for mayor, I had some folks reach out to me from city council. like-minded individuals. Um, and they said that they're working at City Hall. They liked what I had to say. They like what I do with my work. They were willing to bring me into some meetings and talk to me about running for mayor. The problem that I have with that is I'm not a politician. I'm not running as a politician. I'm running as a citizen who's had enough of politicians. I'm giving people a different option. Um, I want to get rid of a lot of the things that those politicians protect. I want to get rid of things like non government organizations. I want to get rid of ridiculous spending. I want to actually lower people's taxes, if not exempt them altogether, and stop pointless spending. Those people don't want me to do that. Theo even said last night they will not want you running in this race. Um, we've had discussions with those groups where people have said you're going to have to watch what you say about Jody Gondek. You're going to have to watch what you do because you don't want to rock the boat again and make bad relationships with people at City Hall. And I've simply answered back and said, yes, I do, because nobody else has. And that's the reason I'm running. So, with these council people reaching out and saying, hey, we're willing to help you, the help has kind of faded and gone. And what I mean by that is there's been incidents where certain individuals, and again, I'm not going to badmouth them or say that they're bad people, um, but I've often talked about Dan McLean from Calgary, who's a councilman on city council, and Dan McLean is pretty based. Um, Dan McLean has some really good ideas, and I don't want to shoot those down. I don't want to say that I don't like Dan McLean. I got no problem with him. The problem is that his behavior clashes with my reason for running. Recently, if you're in Calgary and you follow along with Calgary municipal politics, Dan McLean was caught calling into a meeting, an emergency non-scheduled council meeting, while he was out on the golf course, and he was told to apologize. And while he was on the golf course, it was my understanding that he was possibly with some home developers, because Dan McLean used to be in real estate before he became a councilman. My concern there is that we're seeing Dave Broncagnier again, and again, Dave Broncagnier was a developer turned Calgary mayor. Dave Broncagnier did a lot of deals to help his friends with construction projects in Calgary while raising taxes and kind of screwing his constituents. He left a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of Calgarians. So when I look at guys like Dan McLean, very nice guy. I like his ideas. We're very like minded. But when it comes to running, I don't really want to be associated with those guys because, again, my whole shtick is that I'm running against the machine. I'm running against the normal behaviors and ideologies. And if he's calling in to meetings while he's out golfing, well, I don't really want my name attached to that. I want to run for the people, under the people, to make this city better for them. And if running alongside those guys means that I have to fall in line, which means that I can't reduce taxes because it's going to upset somebody else or bug one of their friends, that's not how I'm interested in running things. So my race just became a lot more difficult because I'm going to have to secure funding on my own. I'm going to have to run my campaign on my own without the help of people that are connected to the Poilievres. And that's going to be very difficult. Now, after making a connection with Chris Sky, my intention is to ask him how you go about funding, how you go about making noise, how you go about growing your platform in order to be successful in a mayoral run. I think Chris has some really good ideas, and I have a lot of respect for the campaign that he ran in Toronto. And I'm going to have him on the show to talk about what he's doing now, after the mayoral run, because he's got some interesting companies and organizations that he's representing in terms of child trafficking. And again, I'm going to have him on the show at some point to talk about those things in the future. But the one thing I'm most interested to sit down and talk to him about is how I make this run happen. And I'll be keeping you guys up to date on that one. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it gets planned. I mean, I even said to Theo last night, I may have bit off a little more than I could chew when I said I'm going to run away from these other councilmen to do my own thing, and Theo pretty much gave me the nod, like, "Yeah, you did." There's a lot of planning to do. There's a lot of organization to do. But if I'm going to do this, I want to do it my way, and I want to do it the cleanest way possible, where you don't owe any kickbacks, you're not in bed with anybody, and I think I can still make a change in this city, and I think I'm going to make a good one. Um, Here we go. Ange coming in. I was the mayor of my municipality last term. And while a small municipality is different from a city mayor, I would love to chat with you and give you some tips. I too was a regular citizen. And if you want to send me an email, I'm going to put it's on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to put it in the chat here just in case if you want to send me an email and give me your information. unacceptablefringeyt@gmail.com. If you send me an email there, I can get in touch with you. I'd love to hear you chat about that. But yeah, I'm trying to run a clean campaign anyways. I know people are going to say I'm rambling here, but um, that's where the mayoral run is at. So there's a lot of planning to do this year because, of course, 2025 is when we get kind of down to the nitty gritty. I even said to Theo last night, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right and I want to do it the best way possible and give it 110% because if it's going to be half-assed, it's not worth my time. It's not worth your time for me to drag you along saying this is happening if nothing's going to come forward. People have come to me, people whom I respect have come to me and said, should you maybe just run for a council position and, make your presence known? We've talked about that on stream before. And I've said, they tell me this is going to be a very tough uphill battle. I warrant and welcome an uphill battle. I like when the odds are against me. I've proven in life that when I wanted to get into publishing, people said, do you know how impossible that is? Do you know how impossible it is to get people to read your work or make it anywhere in the writing industry these days? Well, I've had 5 best-selling books in a year and a half. I've been at number 1 5 times, while people said it's impossible to do it once. It's very hard, very difficult. Now, call that what you may. But I'm the kind of guy that when somebody says you can't do something, I tell them, watch me. And every single time I come back and say, what did I tell you? So I'm looking forward to now the people who have told me and given me this advice, I have tremendous respect for, and I understand their point of view. And they're thinking from a strategic angle. I'm an all or nothing guy. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it what I got. And if that's not enough for the people of Calgary, so be it. What I can tell you is in that 1,000,000 to 1 shot, I do not get the mayor's job. Well, that's probably going to be the end of my term of living in Calgary because this city is out of control. And without somebody at the helm to fix things, it's not really a town that I could afford to live in, not financially, but mentally, or for my kids' future any longer. It's gotten to a point where it's out of control. And Freedom Honey, you keep talking like this, I might have to throw you a parade. Hey, listen, there's going to be a lot of things going on. There's going to be a lot of big events going on because, hey, we're going to have to fundraise. We're going to have to raise the stakes here as to how we're going to do this. But, I talked with my wife about the Freedom Convoy, and I said, those were people that were told they couldn't do anything either, but they had the right message and they raised $20 million in 2 weeks because people had had enough and people were willing to back people with good ideas. That's what I'm doing in Calgary. I think I've got good ideas. If I can get out to the people, if I can get the message out there, I don't think we'll have a problem getting our funding. I think we'll be able to raise what's needed. And again, if I could pay for my own campaign, I would, but it's against the rules. So we're going to have to fundraise at some point. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how things go. Now, that being said, let's get back into politics. Let's get back into what's going on this week. Of course, with the cold in Alberta, we've single-handedly shown in just 24 hours from Alberta just how ridiculous this 2035 or 2030 stuff it really is for the federal government. Stephen Guilbeault is going to be grasping at straws. He'll be grasping at his paper straws this week because there's going to be a lot of pressure on the federal government to try and convince people as to why we should even be talking about climate change anymore. You guys remember in the summer when the forests were burning because, of arson? I mean, climate change. And they said this is the worst summer on record for fires. Well, when you go out and start them, then yeah, you're naturally going to have a bad season of fires. But what we're seeing in Alberta right now, what we're seeing in this cold snap, when it comes to solar, when it comes to wind generated electricity, those plants are putting out 0. While we relied on Saskatchewan to share their energy with Alberta, because the sheriff of Nottingham back in 2016 paid over $1 billion to coal factories to shut down early because they wanted to virtue signal and look like the good old the green people. They wanted to look like, hey, we're caring about the environment. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that because this is all a scam. A lot of people say, well, the carbon tax is a scam because the government needs money to make up for their CERB. The debt is in trouble, so this is all just money to allow them to continue spending. I'm gonna disagree. I think that may be a factor, but what you have to remember, and something I'll be talking about in tomorrow's video, is this is all about control. What you have to realize is that when the pandemic hit, that was all. We've seen articles that say this was all a conducted exercise by military to check on compliance. We've seen them say 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Does everybody remember that? Does everybody remember? Just trust us. Just trust what we have to say. Think about everything that we're saying. We have your best interests at heart. Then it was, oh, the science tells you what to do. The science is dictating what's good for you. Now they're backed into a corner because nobody believes the jargon that they're spitting anymore. And they need something to convince you to fall in line. There was something that Chris Sky mentioned last night at the show with Theo that I was unaware of, but there's actually a MasterCard out there that issues carbon credits so that you can actually set your card to monitor your carbon output so that when you go to get gasoline, when you buy your day-to-day things, it's actually crediting your card every month in terms of what you're putting out in terms of a carbon outprint, so that once you reach your limits, that card cuts you off. Does that sound familiar to anybody? We're talking about a digital ID, digital currency. This is alarming. I didn't know this existed, and I will have a video covering that. The environment, if people were to buy into the scam that the environment is in fact in trouble and that we need to save the environment for future generations, that isn't a man-made disease. That is not something where they can scare you to being in your house because you might kill grandma. This is, you're going to kill future generations. You're going to make the planet unlivable. But it's going to take decades for us to fix the problem with the planet. So we're going to charge you a levy for carbon. And then we're going to tell you to stay in your 15-minute city. And then we're going to tell you to stop being around cows that burp and fart and put emissions in the atmosphere. By the way, did you know that they're currently saying that people breathing is part of that when you breathe, you're emitting carbon into the atmosphere? That the people are now the problem? When you look at what's going on with this gender stuff, with these doctors convincing people, go mutilate your body. Well, guess what that is? That's population control. Chris Sky was talking about it last night and says, this is how we stop people from repopulating. You convince them, you convince a young crowd of kids and indoctrinate them to think that they're bad for being born with certain bits on their lower regions. So they go and mutilate their bodies. Well, guess what? They're not reproducing. Population control. Well, when you breathe, you're emitting too much carbon. Let's introduce things like medical assistance in death, which, by the way, is being upscaled in March because that bill's going to go through that says if you're so much as depressed, you can go and get in a tube now and just end it all. If you can't afford to live, you can't afford to eat. If you're down in the dumps, hey, go get this treatment. It can be over just like that. No problem. No muss, no fuss. All your problems go away. Population control. Control is the number one word here. The environment problem, when you look at Jody Gondek, the failed, woke, disgusting mayor of Calgary, the monster that's sitting in City Hall. She looks like a lizard. She does. She's got the eyes, the whole, yeah, yuck. Anyway, the minute she got in office, she called a climate emergency. Calgary's in a climate emergency. So we're going to put all this money towards spending on the climate emergency. That's control. When you look at the protesting bills in Calgary, where if you disagree with men in dresses reading to your children, well, guess what? You're not allowed to be within 100 feet of them. That bill came from a COVID measure that said you're not allowed to protest downtown because people were too close to each other. So this was an emergency measure, emergency bylaw to tell people you could no longer protest for freedom downtown. And Mayor Nahid Nenshit, when he was in charge, said, "Hey, as soon as the pandemic's over, we're repealing this bylaw, ladies and gentlemen." Sounds a lot similar to 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, guess what? That bylaw was then made by Jody Gondek to be an actual bylaw that stayed in place. Just now, you can't be within any of these centers within 100 feet or 100 meters or whatever it is, or else you get a fine because you're not allowed to protest things we don't like. Sounds like control to me. It's the same woman who calls her climate emergency and says, "Oh, we just have your best interests at heart." Trust us. Trust us. This is why I've said you shouldn't trust any politician, any government, even the ones you like. It's it's what you have to think of, and I'm going to say something that's going to get a lot of people triggered because again, this comes from questioning. I'm going to see if I can bring it up. In fact, so we can talk about it. Do you know Pierre Polyev before um, before he became leader of the Conservative Party, back when Aaron O'Toole was the leader of the Conservative Party. He had some ideas. I don't want to hold up the stream too much. I don't see it here because the news again is filled with a lot of what's going on. I'll just remind everybody, and again, maybe we'll cover it in another video. And again, people, you have to remember this is why we question people. Now, Pierre's ideas could have changed, so this is speculation. I don't want to say that this is how Pierre thinks. But when Pierre Polyev, keep in mind that during lockdowns, I want you to remember that the Conservatives all voted on a lot of the measures that kept us locked in our homes. Do you guys remember that? You guys remember that the Conservatives all voted in favor of locking down houses? They all voted in favor of don't go to hospitals. They all voted in favor of shut down retail aside from big box stores. The Conservatives voted in favor of that. Now, during that time, Pierre Polyev brought out a proposal to Aaron O'Toole about digital currency and digital ID back when he was championing Bitcoin. And he was talking about a bill to put forward digital ID and digital currency. Now, again, I'm going to bring up the details at some point. We'll do a video on it or we'll talk about it on another stream. But now, when you see Pierre Polyev, he says, "No, I don't want digital ID. I don't want digital currency." Because he's in the leader's chair. He wants your votes. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve them. And again, his views on digital currency could have changed. But this was back when he was a finance minister. I don't know if anybody remembers him putting that bill forward. There was a time when I don't know if you guys remember again, during the Freedom Convoy, Pierre Polyev stood up on overpasses with his wife and said, "Look at these trucks. Look at them touting for freedom." There's the classic interview of Pierre Polyev coming up to Parliament when all the trucks were out front in Wellington Street. And he said, "I'm all for anybody who wants to protest legally. I support all protesters who protest legally." And then he was quiet and crickets when the protesters were having their windows smashed and being pushed out of Canada, or pushed out of Ottawa, I should say. Sorry, by Canadian police. Then, when he becomes leader of the Conservative Party, his wife name drops the truckers again and says, "We love the truckers." What you have to realize is that all politicians, and I'm not bad mouthing Pierre Polyev. I don't even want to see that in the chat. people's views change over time. There's things that I thought 5 years ago that I don't think today. Time changes perception, time changes things. So again, I don't want to say this is where Pierre stands because he's not here to defend himself. But what I'm pointing out is that many people have pointed out how he's flip-flopped on a lot of these subjects. Now, is he doing that to get your votes or is he doing that because he's had a change of heart? We don't know. I still agree that Pierre Poilievre is the best solution to fixing our country. I think he's the best thing that's going to happen right now. People were talking about Pierre Poilievre bringing David Menzies into his press conference this week. Do you guys know? Again, I've talked about Melissa Lantsman on the channel, Pierre's deputy. Do you guys know Melissa Lantsman's had David Menzies arrested for asking questions before? Now, I will defend that and say he was being rather aggressive during that time. He was doing his usual David Menzies shtick. But Pierre invites him in. I'm glad to see him there because I have felt for quite some time that Rebel News deserves the accreditation it deserves. They deserve to be a part of these scrums. They deserve to be part of these press conferences. They deserve the right to ask questions as a press outlet. But what you have to remember, this is what I'm saying, is when you look at these politicians, this is the same reason I said that if I'm running for mayor, I don't want to be attached to these people. It's not because I don't like them. It's because I don't know what they're really selling me. I don't know what they're really doing. I don't trust them. That's the problem. So when you look at the green agenda, when you look at all this stuff that they're talking about, population control, they're talking about locking you in your homes because of the environment. Don't drive gas-powered cars anymore. Get your heat pumps. Could you imagine what would have happened in Alberta if people living in northern Alberta would have got the heat pumps? When the power was cycling, they'd be dead. They would have froze to death. Thank God for coal-powered energy and natural gas. Saved their lives. The government wouldn't have cared. They would have said, oh, it's unfortunate what happened in Alberta. We're very sorry for those families that have lost people. By the way, get your heat pumps. So I've spoken to people that have said when it comes to Pierre, they think that he's going to come in what they've predicted. Now, these are people who have worked in politics that I've spoken to that say when Pierre comes in, he's going to give every excuse in the world why he can't axe the carbon tax, and he's going to blame it on Justin Trudeau. Just like Trudeau's government did with Stephen Harper and still do with Stephen Harper. They still bring up Stephen Harper all the time. Say, oh, this is because of a Harper government and all their ruthless spending and their bad policies. It's because of them we're doing these things. It's because of them these things happen. I hear Harper's name brought up in question period all the time still. Maybe not as often as I used to, but it still comes up. This person I spoke to had a feeling that Pierre's going to get in and he'll maybe adjust the carbon tax, but he won't get rid of it. And he says that he's going to blame Justin Trudeau and the spending and the deficit and everything else. And he's going to say, look, we just have no other reason for it, or else they'll just label it as a different tax. They'll get rid of it and they'll call it something else. That's not to say Pierre's not going to do good things. But these guys that are so hard up for Pierre Poilievre that say he can't be touched, he's God, he's the man who's going to fix our problems. People say the same thing about Donald Trump. I like Donald Trump. He's not going to fix your problems. The only person who's going to fix your problems is you. You're going to fix your problems if you want to. We need to start being the solution to our problems, not looking to others to fix them. And that's I think, people, I keep seeing UBI in the chat. I'm sorry, I haven't been following the chat too much as I rant and rave here. But I keep seeing UBI in the corner of my eye. Do you know Melissa Lantsman's already voted in favor of UBI? She's already said that it's a good thing. Do you think the Conservatives aren't going to try and bring in some form of UBI? Now, I've had my speculation to say they may get rid of the Canada Child Benefit and start to form UBI out of the ashes of that in some level or some form. I don't know what we're going to see. but it's scary. And that's where I keep saying 2024 is going to be a scary year. Now, after everything I've said, and this is where people will call me a hypocrite, I'm still going to give my vote to Pierre because out of all the options we have, I feel that he's the best one. I know there's a lot of PPC bros out there that like Maxime Bernier. I've met Maxime Bernier. I ran into him at Winnipeg Airport last year, had a beer with him, and sat down and talked to him. I like him. He's a nice guy. But the guy can't even get his seat. The idea that Maxime Bernier is going to come in on his white horse and save the country, it's not going to happen, guys. Not this time around, at least. So anybody who's saying, well, it's going to be Max, no, it's not. We got to be real at some point. As much as I like him, we have to be real. My vote will go to Pierre because I do believe, like, I like him as a guy. I like talking with him. I like hearing what he has to say, but I still have to question, why did you have a bill with Aaron O'Toole about digital currency? Why did you support it and now you supposedly don't? How sure are we that you're going to get rid of the carbon tax? How come you flip-flopped on the truckers? I would like answers to those things. Anytime you see a news conference, it's always softball questions. And I've been on the receiving end of being told I have to give those softball questions, even when I have Danielle Smith on the channel. Well, unless you're talking about these subjects, I'm not going to come on. They want easy questions because they don't want to tell you the truth. None of them. I'm not just blaming Pierre here. Brad says it perfect here. Pierre will have my vote, but I'll be following closely. This is why I've said people can't get butthurt when we call these things out, when we say, hey, let's look at it from all angles. Let's get down to business. Let's ask the real questions. Pierre's not a terrible human being, but you have to say, look at the guy. He's spent his entire career in politics. You're telling me that he hasn't been corrupted at any point in time? He hasn't been moved over a line of what people would call responsibility. He hasn't been corrupted a little. I hope not. I like him. I'm very grateful for the time that he's talked to me. We're working on a new book around the carbon tax, around Pierre. We're doing a parody of Green Eggs and Ham right now. And people are going to say, oh, you're a shill for Pierre because you're doing a Pierre book. No, I got a business to run, and I think it's going to be a funny book. That's what I do. I produce content that I think is going to be funny. So, yeah. But I can still question the guy. I can still question your motives. I can still question, are we being told the truth? After 8 years of an abusive relationship, it's time for the abuse to stop. And we have to be grown-ups, and we have to say that, look, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. If all of a sudden the curtain is lifted and you find the Wizard of Oz back there controlling the machine, we have to be okay with that. And we have to say it's better to find out now than 4 or 8 years from now after the country has been decimated even more. I had a friend who was in a very abusive relationship back in my 20s. And I used to say to them, why don't you break up with this person? Why don't you leave? This person treated them like absolute garbage. And they always told me, well, I've already been with them for 3 years. I feel like I'm throwing it away. I said to them, it's better to lose 3 years than 10. It's better to lose 3 years than 30. You can't use that as an excuse. It's the same with an abusive relationship in the government. Well, they've buried the economy so much. Hopefully these guys don't do it. No, you need to start. See, a guy like Pierre Poilievre should be awake at night terrified that if he doesn't eliminate the carbon tax, people are going to come for his hide. He should be worried about that. He's not. Sleeps like a baby. Every single person in Canada that wants a better life should be calling his office, should be telling him at rallies, should be assuring him that, hey, I'm going to vote for you, but if you don't keep your promises, you're not going to have this job for very long. We should demand better from every politician. That's the only way life gets better for us. Hold people to account. Speak the truth. Arthur, what happened to your Terminator game? Here we go. Yeah, so the arcade has shrunk a little bit. The reason for that, I'm actually in the process of selling my Terminator machine. Nothing's dire. Nothing's going on. So this big I always get my hands mixed up. The big multicade behind me here. Um, I modified my Terminator machine with some light guns and a Pandora's box that plays about 100 light gun games. The monitor on this multicade is much larger than the Terminator's 17-inch screen. So I've actually got a kit coming that allows me to hook that box up to this machine and play those games. And that box has Terminator on it. So I've ultimately told my wife, look, I'll empty the space a little bit. I'll make some room in our basement because, guys, I've got arcades all over the place. So I said I'll make it look a little less crowded down here and get rid of the Terminator machine because I can just play it on this one with the same guns. So yeah, some things have changed in the arcade, and the Terminator machine is going to be up for sale now. If anybody wants to get their hands on a Terminator machine and you're in the Calgary area, let me know, and I can work out a deal, and you can get the one that I've owned and played on if that's something that interests you. I will be reverting it back to its stock day one condition, but it will be moving out of my collection. In fact, I was talking to my wife. I think I'm going to move a couple of machines out of my collection just because I just don't have the time to play them anymore. And with this big multicade behind me, a lot of the games that are on these other machines, I can play on that. And yeah, share it out. Share it out. Let people have fun too. It's Anyways, let's catch up with the chat. I feel bad I've been ignoring the chat all night. I apologize, guys. If PP lies to us, we will come at him harder than Trudeau, and he knows that. I hope he knows that. I hope he knows that. It's how do you hold them accountable if and when they do lie to us? I can tell you how you hold them accountable. Call them. Call their offices. Call their constituency offices all day, every day. Be a thorn in their side. Hang out front. Get a group of people together in large. Have you ever heard the saying? There's power in numbers. If people are that frustrated, there's social media platforms. There's other places where you can get groups together and say, "Hey, we're all going to go to this person's office on this day." You've seen it happen with Jagmeet Singh. Um, Communities were outside of his office less than a year ago protesting him because they'd had enough and they gave up after a while. But I'll tell you right now, if their phones were ringing off the hook, letters were pouring in, people were standing outside their offices demanding an answer. Look at the Palestine protests going on in Calgary in Canada right now. People are losing their minds because things are getting out of control. I'm not advocating for violence, but people should be taking to the streets. People should be getting organized in high numbers, putting pressure on these people and saying, you can't do that. Now, I'm not saying do it to Pierre's office, but his underlings, all the other MPs who have small constituency offices, every single one of them should be throttled and bombarded with calls. Every single one of them with people saying, you're not getting my vote. I'm coming for you. And we're going to be outside your building with signs and we're not leaving until we get an answer. Look what the Freedom Convoy did. We're parking our trucks out front of Parliament Hill and we're not leaving until you address us. Things didn't happen the way they wanted to, but it made a hell of an impact. There's power in numbers. Community, White Rover mentions it right here. Community is the most important thing. That's why somebody said earlier, why do you keep ranting and rambling? Why are you explaining things you don't have to explain? I have a community. I like including you guys in things. I like having these discussions because everyone feels involved. Everybody feels a little bit closer because look, other YouTubers don't talk about their personal lives and they don't talk about what's going on in their homes. They don't really, maybe they share where they were on a weekend or things like that. I bring you guys in so that we can identify together, so that we have a common ground where people say, I know that guy. I hear what he has to say. And I feel like I can relate to him a little bit. That's the reason for it. Now, I'm not going to pull down my pants on the internet and have everybody kissing my boot heels, but it's because we have a great community. I've said it a million times over. I'll say it again until I'm off of YouTube. I have one of the best communities on this platform. I have people that come out here every Sunday that give their opinions, that spend time in the channel, that get memberships to the channel, that buy my books, that buy my merch, that support what I'm doing, that say, you've got my vote when you're running for mayor. I couldn't be more grateful, more blessed, and more humbled to ever think that I'd be in a position like this. But it's shown me in just over a year what a community does for you. The support, the uplifting strength. Even when I talked at the beginning about the David Menzies nonsense that happened on Friday, Saturday's response video, hey, I'm grateful for all the outpouring of support in the community, in the comment section of the Saturday video, in the comment section of the community post. I'm grateful for all of it. But this is what numbers can do if you take that behavior and move it outside your home. Start holding these people responsible. I've called my local MLA office before and I've told them, you're not getting my vote. And they've said, we'll call you back. I'll get the MLA's office. Like I'll get the actual MLA to call you. It's usually somebody answering. It's not the MLA directly who answers the phone. We all know that. I'll get them to call you. Well, the next day comes around. They don't call me. Do you think I wait around for a phone call? No, I phone them back. Why are you allowing this? Why is this going on? There was about a year ago, 2 years ago. No, sorry, it wasn't that long. It was before COVID. We have what's called a leisure center in town. It's a sports complex where we have like a wave pool, water slides, there's an ice rink, there's wall climbing, there's just about everything in this place. Um, but the wave pool inside this complex was being used for a nude swim. Some kind of nudist colony was going there. It was a nude, naked swim, and children were allowed to attend with their parents. And there was outrage around the city. And I called my MLA and I said, why the hell is this going on here? And they said, well, this is the provincial MLA. It's a city run property. I called my counselor, who no longer has a job, by the way. Dan McLean replaced them. And I said, who the hell do you think you are allowing grown adults to go swimming with children without their clothes on? They says, look, we know people have been calling us. They've been on our backs. We're sorry. You know, we just wanted to make sure people had a place to feel inclusive. With kids, there was an outrage. There was an outpour of backlash from the community. And you know what happened to that event? It was canceled because their phones were ringing off the hooks. There was enough blowback from the public that they realized not only are we going to have people at our office doors with torches and pitchforks, we're losing our jobs. Unfortunately, when elections come around, a lot of people forget those events unless they were just before the election, and they move on, and these people make empty promises and they convince you, hey, just trust me again, please. I have your best intentions at hand. All they're doing is begging for their job. And as soon as they get back in, they put their feet up again and go, I don't got to worry for another 3.5 years. Look at this. That makes my day. My good old bestie, Tamara Leach, hanging out in the chat. Hey, Tamara, great to see you. Welcome into the stream. You need to be on their backs at all times, putting pressure on them, saying, you can't pull this shit in my jurisdiction. If you want my vote, if you want your job, if you want to stay where you are, if you want your pension, you work for me. If I'm the only guy who calls those offices and says, hey, we need a change, nothing's going to happen. But when 200, 300, 400 people bombard an office with letters, with phone calls, with emails, by being up there as a presence, again, take the Freedom Convoy. They parked on the government's front lawn and said, up yours, we're not leaving until you talk to us, until you address these problems. Well, the government addressed them in a violent manner, and the world isn't forgetting it. Look at what just happened in Germany. Look what's happening with the uprising all around the world right now that's going on, with other communities pushing back against their governments, saying enough is enough. We're not doing this anymore. That all started because a group of people got in their trucks and said, not in my backyard. There's power in numbers. And when they talk about the climate, when they talk about Oh, this is bad for don't breathe because of the emissions coming out of your body. Stay inside your house. You can trust us. That's all this is. It's smoke and mirrors. They want you broken apart. Why do you think Justin Trudeau has spent the last 8 years dividing everybody? I've talked about it before on this stream. He divides everybody into little groups. This is the LGBT, this is the women's group, this is the poked and the non-poked. These are the truckers that are terrorists. These are people who wave Canadian flags and they're hedonists. Don't talk to them. Don't talk to men who have jobs. These are the people that want UBI. He puts them all in little groups because he wants us to be weak. He wants us to be divided. I've said it last week. I've said it before on stream. When I watched the Freedom Convoy, I didn't see truck drivers. I saw Canadians. Canadians, real blood, sweat, and tear Canadians. When I saw the March for Children's Rights in Calgary in September, I didn't see a bunch of people with their kids protesting. I saw Canadians. And that's what we need. Canadians saying, this isn't your place to screw up. This is my country, strong and free. This is my land. And you're not taking that away from me. And anybody who wants to tell you, well, you're a Nazi, you're this, you're that. You know why they say those things? Because they got nothing. Because they're scared of you. Their minds have been warped by ideologies. If you speak the truth and if you stand behind the truth, you have all the power in the universe to say, tell me how I'm wrong. They'll never be able to. They'll name call because they don't have the truth. You have the truth on your side. You can get anything done. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not saying this with an ego or some kind of flex. I'm living proof. People said to me, you can't be a successful published author. Watch me. 5 times in a year, bestseller. Watch me. People said, you can't run for mayor. You're a nobody. Watch me. When I said I'm going to start a YouTube channel, oh, you can't do YouTube. Come on, man. You're just a guy who writes books. You can't do YouTube. Watch me. Anybody can do anything they want to if they stand behind their convictions and believe in what they're doing and believe in what's at the end of the journey. If they believe in the light that's at the end of the tunnel, to say, if I work hard enough at this and if I see the truth, if I see the underlying goal that's going to make a difference here, I'm going to come out on top. And that's the problem, is after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, we're all defeated. We're all pushed down. We're all down on our luck. We're downtrodden. We have no money. We don't have homes. We don't have electricity. We don't have heat. We don't have food in the fridge. We can't afford anything for our kids. So we start going, what's the point? This is the old saying where the guy says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's where people need to get. And I said it before the Freedom Convoy. I had friends who were down on their luck that if you offered MAID back then, probably would have taken it. They said, I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like my country is lost. I feel like my life is gone. I feel like it's never going to get any better. And I kept saying, there's only so far you can push a desperate animal into a corner before it lashes back and attacks. And that's exactly what happened with the Freedom Convoy. The world said enough. And I think that tensions are starting to mount in Canada, where we're starting to see that. And again, I say 2024 is going to be a hell of a year. I don't think it's going to be a year of oppression. I don't think it's going to be a year of bad politics. I think it's going to be a year of people pushing back and starting to wake up and starting to say, enough is enough. And we're not putting up with it anymore. And I'm just saying earlier, when I talk about Pierre and guys like that, that I sincerely hope as Canadians, not as sheep, but as Canadians, we all stand up and start saying, you're not pulling that shit when you get into office. Justin Trudeau has provided one hell of a roadmap for whoever comes back into that office with power to say, you can get away with all of these things. Maybe just cover your tracks a little bit better. And that's what scares the living shit out of me, is that if a guy like Pierre Poilievre wanted to come into office and say, I'd like to be worth $90 million when I leave this office, he could do that. He just can't be as stupid and careless as Justin Trudeau. But we as Canadians need to remind him constantly, I hope you do a good job, but if you screw up, we're going to be here and we're going to be your worst nightmare when you fall out of line. So don't do it. People have said to me, if you get the mayor's chair, you're just one vote in City Hall. What are you going to do? I'll tell you again what I'm going to do. I will make every councilman's life a living hell in that building for the 4 years that I'm there until I can convince people to give me another mandate and oust those people, or until I'm kicked to the curb. I will make their lives so bloody miserable that they'll finally say, just give him what he wants. Give him what he wants. Just make him shut up. The reason I'll do that, because I'm not a politician. I'm not going in there to say I got to line my pockets so that when I finish my job, I got a pension, I got money in the bank, I can go to Jamaica and put my feet up and smoke doobies and hang out and get drunk all day. No, I want the job because I love my city. I love my city used to be, and I want it to go back to the way it used to be, a prosperous town with opportunity for the younger generation to excel if they want to get down to work and get their hands dirty. I'm not interested in fat checks. I'm not interested in bonuses or perks or being a pig at a trough, sucking up all the taxpayers' money. Give me a break. Politics has turned into the new version of professional sports with sponsorships, with companies in back pockets saying, wear our brands, do what we say. Enough is enough. Good people need to run this country. Good people that say, I want to leave this place better than I found it. I want to leave this planet. When my time is done on this planet, I want people to say it was left for me in a better position. I have better opportunities than the generation before me. Anybody who's got kids who sits here knows that as a father, as a mother, you look at your children and you say, I want them to have more than I had when I was a kid. You'd give your kids the shirt off your back. I want to give my kids more opportunities. I want to give them more access to a better life. Why can't we do that for this country? Why can't we start saying, I want to leave this country in the hands of good people? I want to make it so that my kids can get a job, so that my kids can afford to buy a home, so that my kids can have financial prosperity and their kids can have the same, if not better. That's what we need to get down to. And that's what this country needs. Not a guy who's going to take his aviator glasses and huff his farts and virtue signal and say, hey, I'm saying all the right things. Again, I think Pierre's going to do a great job. At least I hope he does. And if he doesn't, I sincerely hope we all go back at a flying full force and put him back in his place. That's why I've said if I don't get the mayor's job, that'll probably be the end of my time in Calgary. My wife has been begging me to leave this town. Begging. This is a city of opportunity, or at least it used to be. Calgary is a beautiful, beautiful town. I love Calgary. I love the people we've met here. I love everything about it. But when I threw my hat into the ring last year, I told my wife, I'm not ready to leave yet because this town is full of good people. They just need a shot. And I want to be the one to give them that shot. And that's why I'm going to run independent. I'm not going to latch on to other city councilors. I've just made my uphill battle even more uphill than it would have been a couple months ago. But I'll tell you, until my dying breath, I will fight for that position. And I'm going to fight not because I want people to look at me and go, wow, he's the mayor, or hey, man, how's it going? You get all this money. Everything's great for you. I want to fight for that position so that people can come to me and say, I can afford my bills now. I got a good job. This new company came to town and I was able to work downtown again. I can afford to go on vacation. I can invest. That's it. I don't want that job for a paycheck. I don't want that job so I can feel good about myself. Don't get me wrong. I'll feel pretty good if I get it. But I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you, for your kids, for my kids, for everybody who needs a second chance, for everybody who needs to get out of this shithole. The one that elected officials have put us in, or installed officials have put us in, and the one that that buffoon and his fancy socks has put us in. Enough is enough. I could stay in my basement if he moves back to Winnipeg. I'm not moving back to Winnipeg. No, we'd probably move. My wife's looking at Central Alberta if we do anything. Um, we ran away from Calgary, couldn't stand the crime there anymore. Nearly shot my son in his bed via drive-by. So that's one of the things that needs to change. I've already said I want a full audit of the police. And if you don't want to do your job, get out and I'll hire people. They get paid very well. I'll hire cops that want to do their jobs and that aren't corrupt. And if I see corruption, you're out. I don't care. People say, well, our numbers are low. Good. Call Edmonton, ask them to send some people, have somebody send police from another branch somewhere until we can hire more. I don't care. Have you guys heard what the mayor just did? We've covered the $2 million statue that Jody Gondek put in Calgary in front of the Stampede grounds. $2.2 million statue that looks like a splash of water. It to me looks like whatever she queefs out of her butthole after some bad Taco Bell. She said when she first got her job, we're going to see taxes go up about 3%. Now, Nen shit, when he was in charge, would raise taxes every year by about 3%. And then they would take their self-appointed raises. Jody Gondek has raised taxes 8.9%. 7 point something with the city, another 1 point whatever in other places. Totaling 8.9%. And that was after buying her $2 million structure, and last week gave herself a big old hefty raise. She came in and said, you know what, guys? I've been here for a year. My approval rating's in the toilet. I've locked people out of protesting. I threw $2 million out when people can't afford to heat their homes, turn on their lights, or buy food. And you know what? I think that deserves a bit of a raise. I think I'm going to get myself a raise on the taxpayers' back when they can't afford to live as it is. Get out, you snake woman. Zylo's mentioning Toronto. So I've got a video coming about that this week. Olivia Chow talking about, I want to rename Dundas Street. She's got all the money to rename Dundas Street because it's a racist name. She doesn't have money to make life easier for her constituents. She's going to raise taxes 10%. And that's in a city where the average house is worth $1 million. Get out of here. This is what installed government looks like. Chinese installed government. Call it what it is. Jody Gondek doesn't give a shit about crime in Calgary. She doesn't care. Danielle Smith had to come in and do her job last year when she brought a bunch of police in to stand at the C train stations to watch the people that were getting stabbed, the people shooting up heroin while they were waiting for trains, and saying, hey, we're going to clear all this out. And when the time came for that contract to end, she was told by the province, you can hire these police on full time. And do you know what Jody Gondek said? Nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'd rather spend $2 million on a shitty statue and give myself a hefty raise. Thanks, but no thanks. She doesn't care. This ideology from the government of spend, 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 and put it on the backs of the taxpayers, that needs to end. It needs to end. She has a spending problem because she was installed by the Chinese. She doesn't care about Calgary, just like Justin Trudeau doesn't care about Canada. And that's why I've said, when I come into that office, if I get that job, I'm going to try to eliminate business taxes. Get rid of them altogether. And people say, well, how are you going to fund the city? How are you going to afford the city costs if you do that? Well, it's quite simple. We're going to eliminate all the NGOs that are going on around town. All these non-government organizations that suck up the city coffers, that don't need to be there. If you got rid of the useless NGOs and put your money in places where it actually had an impact, you could afford to reduce people's house taxes, their property taxes, by almost 60%. And you could eliminate business tax at the same time while still having enough money to run the projects in your city. I don't know if people are aware of that. Do you know how quickly businesses, oil and gas companies, other companies would come to Calgary if there was no business tax? This city would flourish again. Downtown wouldn't be a barren wasteland. While eliminating those taxes, the first thing I would do in that office is say, there's no climate emergency. We have a crime emergency in this town. I want police out in full force getting rid of this stuff. Clean up the streets. We don't need a broom. We need a team of street sweepers. You need a tsunami to wash it all away. Get rid of it. People don't want to get off the streets and go to shelters. Get them out of town. Get them out of here. We have shelters, we have resources for people if they want to get help. If they don't want to get help, I don't want you in Calgary. Get out. This is a city of hardworking people. This is a city where people should be allowed to let their kids outside to play and not have to worry about needles hanging out in their parks or people getting shot. I'd really love to be able to force a lot of the gang violence you see in Calgary comes from Asian gangs. There was a guy named Jackie Tran. I know people are going to say Jackie Chan, but Jackie Tran back in the early 2000s. He'd been in and out of the court system in Calgary, and he was involved in this shooting called the Bolsa shooting on New Year's Day in Calgary. But they couldn't pin anything on him ever. And eventually they pushed for extradition because they said, we don't want him here anymore. I think if you come to this country and you screw up like that, you're out. We don't want you here. If you can't live under our laws, get out. And I'd be pushing for those kind of things in this city and saying, not anymore. Not in my backyard. NIMBY, not in my backyard. I would run this city the way I run my house. It's going to be safe. People are going to be looked after. And people need to realize that if they're willing to work, they're going to be rewarded for it. And that's the way all cities should be run. That's the way every city should run. How we get there is going to be one hell of a battle. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was scared, but I'm prepared to do it. And I'm looking forward to running that race for you guys and hopefully make some changes in Canada. Guys, I've gone way over the limit on what we usually do for streams. And hey, you know what? I got to get content out for you guys this week. So I'm going to wrap up the stream. Really grateful to everybody who came out, who watched the stream. Again, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your notification bells, like, share, get this out. Next week on the stream, I'm going to have a guest. We're going to have Chris Vanderbros. He is a former RCMP, or I don't know if it's RCMP or OPP officer out of Ontario. In Ottawa, he actually left the police. I almost said Calgary police. He left the police force due to the corruption, and started a company called Straight Goods Clothing. Now, there's going to be some announcements. I am actually running a clothing line with Straight Goods Clothing, all in the name of charity and goodwill. And boy, they got some good designs coming, and we're going to be talking about that later this week. But I want to have Chris on this channel to talk a bit about his story, what he experienced with police corruption, and where we could be headed in the future. So come back next Sunday. I'm going to have him on the show and hear what he has to say, and we'll announce this product line so you guys can see all the great designs that are coming forward from Unacceptable Fringe. I'm looking forward to it. They've done a bang up job, and it's going to be a good show. Hope you guys have a great week. If you're in Alberta, if you're anywhere where it's cold, bundle up, stay warm, stay as safe as you can. If you don't have to go outside, don't bother. I know that's going to sound like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, but honestly, folks, I have your best interest at heart when I say that. I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy your days. And I will catch you here on the Fringe next Sunday for the weekly wrap. Take care, guys. Again, thanks to everybody who was in the chat. Shout out to Tamara again for popping in. Great to see you, my dear. You guys take